What if I told you that the most feared reality of life, the thing most people spend their entire existence running away from, was actually the very key to living with freedom, clarity, and peace? That's right. I'm talking about death. For many, even hearing the word brings discomfort. We avoid the thought, we distract ourselves, we cling to routines and pleasures just so we don't have to face it. But for Marcus Aurelius, the great Stoic philosopher and Roman emperor, facing death head-on was not something to fear, it was something to embrace. In his timeless book Meditations, written as personal notes to himself, Marcus constantly reminded himself of mortality, not as a grim obsession, but as a tool for wisdom and strength. And that's what we're exploring today, how Marcus Aurelius teaches us to face death without fear, and how his wisdom can help us live better, fuller lives right now. But before we dive deep into this life-changing philosophy, I want to invite you to join our community. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and stay with us, because on this channel, we don't just talk about philosophy, we transform it into practical lessons that help you thrive in a world full of chaos and distractions. So, subscribe now and let's begin. Marcus Aurelius lived in a time where death was not a distant concept. Plagues, wars, and personal loss were part of daily life. As emperor, he carried the burden of leading an empire while constantly confronting mortality, not only of his people, but also of his own loved ones. He lost children, he lost friends, and he often faced illness himself. Yet, instead of letting these realities crush him, Marcus used them as constant reminders that death is not an enemy. Death is a natural part of existence. In Meditations, he writes, "Do not act as if you were going to live 10,000 years. Death hangs over you. While you live, while it is in your power, be good." What Marcus is saying here is simple but profound. The certainty of death is what gives urgency to life. Think about it. If you had endless time, if you knew you would live forever, would you value your days in the same way? Would you cherish your relationships, seize your opportunities, or live with passion? Probably not. The fact that life is finite is exactly what makes it meaningful. Aristotle once said the purpose of life is flourishing, but Marcus reminds us that flourishing only matters because our time is short. When you remember that you don't know if tomorrow will come, suddenly the little arguments, the pointless grudges, and the constant chase for shallow rewards all lose their grip on you. Modern life often tricks us into thinking we're invincible. We scroll, we plan, we delay our dreams, saying, "I'll do it tomorrow, next year, someday." But Marcus Aurelius challenges us. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do, say, and think. Pause for a moment and let that sink in. You could leave life right now. Imagine if you truly lived with that awareness. Would you waste hours comparing yourself to others? Would you avoid telling the people you love how much they mean to you? Would you keep postponing that dream you've been holding back? Or would you finally step forward, act boldly, and live with authenticity? This is not about being dark or pessimistic. It's about liberation. When you stop fearing death, you stop being controlled by the things that don't matter. You stop living passively and start living deliberately. Marcus also reminds us that fearing death is, in many ways, irrational. He wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." Death itself is not suffering. It is simply the end of sensation, the closing of the story. What's far worse, according to him, is wasting your life in fear, never truly experiencing it. Think about how many people live as though they'll be alive forever, postponing happiness, holding grudges, obsessing over wealth, or chasing the approval of others. And then, when the end comes, they realize they never truly lived. Marcus warns us not to fall into this trap. Mortality is not something to run from. It is something to guide us, reminding us to live fully in the present. And here's where the real transformation begins. When you accept that your time is limited, you begin to prioritize what truly matters. You stop wasting energy on things outside your control. You let go of bitterness. You focus on virtue, on kindness, on meaningful action. Because at the end of it all, what will matter most is not how long you lived, but how deeply, how wisely, and how courageously you lived. Marcus Aurelius, ruling one of the greatest empires in history, knew better than anyone that power, wealth, and fame fade with time. The only thing that remains is your character, your actions, and the way you touch the lives of others. Death, far from being a curse, is the great equalizer. The reminder that no matter who we are, we all return to the same earth. And in that equality, there is peace. So, instead of fearing death, Marcus invites us to use it as fuel. Fuel for courage, fuel for gratitude, fuel for love. Because when you live with the awareness of death, you stop taking life for granted. You begin to see each sunrise, each conversation, each opportunity as a gift. And that, perhaps, is the most powerful freedom a human being can ever experience. If Section 1 was about understanding that death is natural and inevitable, Section 2 is about asking the bigger question: what do we do with this knowledge? How do we live once we accept that our time is limited? Marcus Aurelius doesn't leave us with abstract theory. He gives us direction. Over and over in meditations, he reminds himself that knowing we will die should make us live with urgency and virtue. To Marcus, death wasn't the end of meaning. It was the very thing that gave meaning to everything. Think of it like this. If you only had a year left to live, how would you live differently? Would you continue scrolling through endless distractions, arguing over small things, and postponing your dreams? Or would you focus on what truly matters, building deeper connections, contributing to others, and using your gifts to their fullest? Marcus would say, don't wait until you're faced with death to start living that way. Start now. In one of his writings, he said, think of yourself as dead. You have lived your life. Now take what's left and live it properly. This isn't morbid. It's empowering. Imagine carrying this perspective into your daily life. You stop dragging the weight of the past. You stop fearing the future. And you start treating today as the only thing that's real, because it is. Now let's bring this into modern life. In relationships, how many people hold grudges or let pride destroy friendships and family bonds? Marcus's reminder of mortality tells us, life is too short for bitterness. If tomorrow isn't promised, then forgiveness, kindness, and love become urgent priorities. When you live with death in mind, you hug tighter, you speak kinder, and you let go faster. In work and ambition, today we are constantly told to chase more. More money, more recognition, more achievements. But Marcus would ask, to what end? He knew that when death comes, no title, no salary, and no empire can go with you. What stays behind is your integrity, your impact, your character. So instead of asking, how much can I accumulate? Marcus challenges us to ask, how much can I contribute? How well can I live? In facing fear, many people live half lives, paralyzed by the fear of failure, rejection, or embarrassment. But what is embarrassment compared to death? What is rejection compared to the fact that life itself is temporary? Marcus teaches us that remembering death is the ultimate cure for hesitation. When you realize that time is slipping away, you stop waiting for the perfect moment. You take action now, because later may never come. Let's reflect on a powerful example. Imagine someone who always wanted to start their own business, write a book, or create art, but fear keeps holding them back. Marcus would remind them, you could leave life right now. Suddenly, the fear of failure becomes small compared to the regret of never trying. Death makes fear look trivial. And here's another lesson. Mortality also teaches us gratitude. Every breath you take, every sunrise you see, every laugh you share, it's all temporary. That's what makes it precious. Instead of dreading death, Marcus invites us to use its presence as a reminder to savor life more deeply. When you understand that nothing lasts forever, you begin to appreciate everything more. The ordinary moments, sharing a meal, walking in the rain, sitting quietly with a friend, become extraordinary because you see them as fleeting gifts. Finally, Marcus Aurelius teaches us to face death itself with dignity. He believed that death is not a punishment or something unnatural. It's simply part of the cycle of life. Just as you didn't fear being unborn before your existence, you shouldn't fear the end of your existence. It is a return to nature, a release, a completion. And when we live in this way, accepting death rather than fearing it, we stop being controlled by it. We find courage, peace, and even joy. To Marcus, the true tragedy was not death itself. The tragedy was living a life full of wasted potential, wasted time, and wasted opportunities to be good, to be wise, and to be kind. That is why he urged himself, and now urges us through his writings, to treat every day as if it could be the last, and therefore to live it as the best. So, let's turn Marcus Aurelius's wisdom into a challenge for ourselves. Forgive faster, love deeper, act bolder, and live so fully that when death comes, you don't fear it, you simply greet it, knowing you have lived with courage and purpose. Because in the end, death isn't the enemy. Wasting life is. And that brings us to the heart of Marcus Aurelius's timeless wisdom. Facing death without fear is the key to living fully. Death is not the end of meaning. It's the beginning of clarity. It reminds us to let go of pettiness, to embrace the present, and to live with virtue and courage. So, if this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to our channel for more timeless lessons from philosophy, psychology, and history. Together, let's not just learn wisdom, let's live it. Remember Marcus Aurelius's words, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do, say, and think. So ask yourself, if today were your last, how would you live it?